Well, I'm back again. So, this recent episode of Star Trek Academy, episode 4, has been great. I'm not gonna, some people are not gonna like that. It's not my problem. For me, I really enjoyed this episode. There are a couple moments where I got a little bit like, ooh, I feel that. Like a little bit emotional. I felt the energy and just like the emotion within this episode. I just loved it so much. And I feel like if they keep going in this direction with this series, like it might actually be solid for me. I might actually enjoy this. There are a lot of different reasons for that. I feel like it definitely felt, a lot of people say that it doesn't feel Star Trek. For me personally, I feel like this is probably the most Star Trek episode out of the whole series so far that this feels like Star Trek to me. Like this is the kind of stuff I want to see more of. So I'm gonna get into it without going too in depth because I do want to probably do a video at the end of the season and kind of like do a more detailed review of everything from a more in-depth perspective, just because right now these are just like off the dome like reviews, right? This is kind of like my thoughts like watching it and then just kind of just speaking on so that I can remember, but like not necessarily from a place of like deep analysis. So yeah, I might end up doing that. So straight off the bat, we get the episode where, well, in the beginning of the episode we find out that Jaden, I love this too. I love the fact that this episode is focused around him. And in the series, we're gonna see that there's no necessarily like one main character with the students. Like, of course, there's Caleb, that's probably like the main one, but it seems like they're gonna shift the attention around to different students. And what I love about that, or different cadets, sorry, is that we'll be able to see the character development with each character. And I feel like for me, as a person who's a sucker for very good like character development, I love when a series is able to kind of balance it and represent everybody, tell everybody's story in a way that brings everything together so that we can appreciate it all as a whole and see how it all fits into the plot and into the development of the series. And so when it comes down to this episode, I think for me, Jaden is definitely my favorite character. And I usually don't have favorites, but in this series, I think Jaden is definitely my favorite character so far. So at the beginning of the episode, we found out that pretty much the Klingons are now darn near extinct. Not extinct, but like they're endangered, pretty much. Like they're on the brink of extinction. And the interesting thing about that is just wondering like what happened to get, to put the Klingons in that position, and like as far as like what happened to get them to the point where they don't have anything really, like they're just kind of, what caused them to be in such a state, especially with everything going on during this time period. So I think that'll be interesting to kind of figure out as maybe the series goes on. We could find out a little bit more about that. But yes, that we find that out in that scene where they tell him the news and how like they don't know if they think his family might have been on the ship and everything, and like that was very like sad for me. I felt that. I felt that was tragic, and just how like people were looking at him because he's like the only Klingon within the Starfleet Academy, so everybody was like looking at him like, oh bro. It's kind of like, for me, not saying it's the same, but like when the topic of slavery comes up in like classrooms, and like if you're like one of the black students in the class, everybody looking at you like, like like, are you okay? Like, I don't really know how to explain it. So I felt that when he was walking down the hall and everybody was just kind of looking at him and stuff. Anyways, to skip ahead, they of course were doing the whole debate thing and all that, and he was dealing with, of course, having like a panic attack and not really like being able to like, I guess, voice his stances, his beliefs, and speak on it in a confident way. Like he's, it was hard for him to kind of speak up, so he darn near passed out. I thought it was interesting how Caleb had assumed that Jaden would be on his side for, Starfleet to step in and give assistance to the Klingons, and how he just assumed that, oh, of course we're going to be teaming up. And then Jaden was like, no, this is actually my stance. And he just kind of felt like, why do I need somebody else's help? Like, you don't think I could do this myself? And so I thought it was interesting to kind of see them clash, because we did see like their friendship as far as like them having lunch together and stuff like that. And I love their dynamic. I love their friendship. I love the development that they've had since the first, 3 episodes that we've gotten so far, and kind of seeing how their dynamic actually works and seeing how their friendship works. And I thought it was nice. I thought it was interesting to see people from two different worlds coming together and just being able to like just merge in a way, like, you know, like platonically, like be able to like share each other's worlds and perspectives. And I thought that was so cool. And even how, you know, Jaden and his morals and what he stands on, like his own convictions as far as like what he believes. And it's interesting because like he has these amazing perspectives, but he's not able to defend, like, you know what I mean, like during a debate, right, like he wasn't able to voice like his perspective without having a panic attack. But he clearly has a very interesting way of looking at things that some people look at as like, was that really necessary? For example, him taking the pepperonis off of his pizza because he's like, I'm not gonna eat an animal that was, you know, killed in an unfair fight or something like that. And like how Caleb was like, what is like, it was even, it's made by a generator, like it's not a replicator, it's made by a replicator, so why does it matter? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't even necessarily apply. And he was like, no, I'm still not gonna eat it, you know what I mean? Because it's still like the same thing. I think that's probably fits in the same category why I get why he wouldn't eat it. But even like just from that perspective, and like not eating the stew as well because he hadn't earned it, and just having like these certain morals that he stands on and convictions that he stands on, that I thought was pretty cool. And even getting like a little glimpse of like Caleb and like how he operates, how his mind works, and how he's able to memorize all those different things because of having to deal with being incarcerated and like just like his tough life after, like, you know, his mom was taken from him and everything. And so I like how we're getting a development with both of them within this episode. When the whole situation happened with Nala, as far as like her trying to talk to the Klingon guy, and their chemistry is crazy. Actually, I like that guy, the Klingon leader guy. I forgot his name, but he's really cool. I like that character. I like their dynamic together. I thought it was kind of interesting. Like, you could definitely feel like the tension between them and just like the chemistry between them. And I thought that it was nice. I was like, that guy, SDY, like he seems like a cool dude. Like he seems like a cool guy. And just basically how, you know, she was kind of putting that whole thing of like trying to get them to like aren't you concerned about your extinction? Like, you know, shouldn't you be like, wouldn't you want to have this planet? Like, she's just kind of like in that mindset of Starfleet, like, why don't you understand, like, you need this, like, just take it, like, we're trying to give it to you, just take it. But she's not getting the point of like, it's not about them not wanting it or not needing it. It's the manner of which like it happens. Like, you know, they just don't want to take it. That's just not how they are. And they don't understand why they can't just move past that and take what they need, because is it your existence more important than your culture, like in this situation? And so she couldn't understand that, and she couldn't get her way in that situation. And it's kind of interesting and funny and cute how like they kind of understand each other, like they know how they like the other person is, but there's still love between them, clearly. You know, we move on to the actual debate and seeing that happen. I love like the nature of the debate, and it didn't seem like it was like any like anger or frustration or like super competitive like with the other like cadets. Like even with Sam and then whatever that other cadet was, and how like at the end like they dapped each other up. It was like kind of like a friendly thing, even though Sam won, like the other girl wasn't like butthurt or anything. It was kind of like, it seemed fun, it seemed cool, and I like that, you know, that dynamic. And just kind of seeing even though the girl wasn't like a main character or anything, like seeing the dynamic between them and just seeing how like it just feels like it's an actual campus. Like there's a world outside of what we see through the screen. Like there's dynamics outside of what we see, you know, from our perspective. Yeah, so going on to the debate and just seeing how the whole thing went down with Jaden and Caleb. At this point, Jaden, he did, you know, okay with the debate and everything. And, you know, of course, him and Caleb kind of get into it, and they hit below the belt with some stuff. They definitely went for each other's throat there. And so they had to be like separate or whatever. But I enjoyed how Jaden and Thok had that one-on-one conversation. I felt that coming from the beginning, like the way that she was looking, I was like, I hope they have a conversation. Like they need to have a conversation. I need to see that. And so when they actually sat down and they had the conversation, and like she just kind of opened up about a little bit of her backstory, which I find so interesting, and I want to know more about her background and like just how she ended up where she is, like, you know, especially because she's Jem'Hadar and Klingon, and just kind of hearing her story about, you know, how her grandparents or whatever gave up their house or whatever to be amongst the Jem'Hadar or whatever was going on is kind of interesting. I'm like, wow, especially since it's so far in the future, you want to know like, okay, what led to this and why they make this choice. Like it's so much has changed in society that I'm curious as to why this happened. I'm sure like people like her, like interbreeding and like, you know, her type of like mixture is not common. Like I'm pretty sure there's not really anybody else like her with that mix. And so I'm sure she had a very interesting and unique upbringing, and clearly like there's a lot of hostility and things that she had to deal with, growing up, which makes her, kind of gives her like an understanding and a softness. Especially I think like she has like that hard, roughness, but at the same time there's like a lot of warmth and love there, and I just love her character. And so like her having a conversation with him and kind of giving him a different perspective, and also like apologizing to him, like not yeah, like just kind of being like, I should have said something before, like I should have stepped up and said something to you, like when it happened, or like, but I feel like when she taught them it was like perfect timing. But she gives her perspective on the whole thing and kind of enlightens him in a way that he wasn't really familiar with as a Klingon, as far as like Klingon culture and Klingon, the concept of like how they operate, and her being able to enlighten him and say like, look, like he freed you. That's what he did. Like he knew that you weren't like them, in the sense of like, you're not a killer, you love life, you protect that, you know what I mean? And so the dad seemed as if like he probably just didn't know how to express that. And so what he did was he did what he did within the cultural realms. Like he didn't go outside of that, but he freed him, by missing a target. And so Jaden having that perspective and like, oh wait, there is a way that we can fix this situation without having to have the Klingons assimilate. You know what I mean? And it was kind of interesting how like everybody else didn't understand like where he was coming from and couldn't understand why he had the stance that he had. Not even Nala understood like why the Klingons wouldn't just accept the planet. And so for him being how he is, like not really being like a regular, I guess a normal Klingon, or what you expect from a Klingon, like everybody's kind of expected him to just kind of like agree that, oh, they should just, assimilate, or they should just accept this because they need it. You know what I mean? But I like the fact that he's standing on preserving their culture, like being able to be like, look, I'm a Klingon, like, I stand on the culture, and I'm also a Starfleet cadet as well. I'm within Starfleet. I can be both, but it shouldn't be where one part of who he is has to assimilate to the other, if that makes sense. Like he can still be both. And so I thought that was kind of interesting how that discussion was had, because it still can apply to people who are mixed race or whatever the type of situation could be. But I love that they included that within the show with his character development, and be able to say like, look, I'm both, and being able to defend that. It's like, just because he's different, it doesn't mean that he's gonna just forego the whole culture that he grew up in, even though he didn't fully understand it at times. Like it was a culture that he grew up in. I also forgot to mention his brother. That also was like, that was sad. I kind of knew that he was gonna die, but I mean, actually seeing it was actually kind of sad. I also didn't like the type of editing that they did for those scenes. I feel like it was kind of too flashy, too weird, I don't know what they're trying to do with it. I get it, but like I'm like, it's a bit much. I didn't really care too much for it. But anyways, getting back on topic, I thought it was cool how they delved into that for his character, as far as just like being both and accepting both, and then also him coming to the realization after talking to Thok that there's a way to solve the problem without trying to force something or trying to have people to change. And him presenting that to everybody in a way that he spoke with such conviction in front of everybody, like just his development from the beginning of the episode to the end of the episode, how he was able to kind of speak with conviction of like his stance, his beliefs, and what he thought was right. And I think I also touched on this whole idea of Starfleet, as far as like feeling like, other people, other species and stuff see Starfleet as kind of like, you have to assimilate to them. Like they're not willing to actually hear and figure out how can we help each other, or like how can we do this without having them change or us change. Like let's find a middle ground, let's find a way to respect each other. And I loved that. I love the fact that they addressed that, to say that, look, Starfleet, you guys aren't perfect either. You need to learn how to listen, how to respect other people's culture, and how to be able to navigate that in a way that doesn't feel like you're trying to force people to assimilate to something. You have to listen, you have to, move according to that. I think also that helps other species to respect them more, because it's like, okay, they're going to respect us for who we are without trying to change us, and learn how to navigate each other in that way, within those bounds of like, what their morals and culture is or whatever the case might be, And so the whole thing with him going out and them being like, hey, you guys are in our, like, look, we're going to have to fight because y'all in our bounds right now. So, you know what I mean? Like the whole situation when they kind of like the Klingons and Starfleet met up or whatever. And like the Klingon leader, sorry, like I said, can't remember his name, but he already knew what it was. So like, just kind of like, oh, pew, pew, pew. But like nobody's actually trying to hurt each other. It was more so like, we know what this is. And, they're able to, Starfleet, with the help of Jaden and Thok, without them really knowing that, Thok kind of helped him to reach that understanding, understood that in order for them to want it to take that planet, which I feel like, the leader was already trying to like kind of show that, as far as like for them, they can't just take it. That's just not how they are. They have to win it or earn it in some type of way, right? Through battle or whatever. And so that's what they did. They battled them, they fought. Technically the Klingons won, and they conquered the planet so they could therefore take the planet. So I thought that was so cool. I loved how that situation ended up. Very short, of course, but it definitely felt more Star Trek. It was like, wow, I loved how this all came together. I do. And then we also get Caleb and Jaden talking at the end of the episode, them kind of like having a conversation and coming to understanding with each other. And I liked how Jaden pretty much told Caleb that, it's not about forgetting the past, it's about allowing the future enter the now in or whatever, and just kind of like accepting new experiences and not holding yourself back from things that you want or that you desire because of your past. You know what I mean? Like you can have both. And it's the same thing with Jaden when it comes to his brother. Like he can accept Caleb as a brother and still have his other brother. You know what I mean? Like he can accept, that for what it is. And that to me is real growth. I love that. And so, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Not too crazy. I might be forgetting some certain things. Like I said, it's not like an in-depth review. It's just off the top of my head. I really, really enjoyed this episode so much. I feel like they did a great job. Also, I wanted to mention the whole Darum helping Jaden with the breathing exercises. I thought that was so nice. Like, exactly what to do to help. Like he didn't go in there to make him feel bad. He didn't go in there to poke fun at him. He went in there to help him. And sure, we could talk about the lingering and like the whatever clear like attraction he probably feels towards Jaden, like in that minute, the tension. Jaden just being backing off like, hey, like, okay, thank you, or whatever. But I like that scene. I like the fact that Darum was in that moment with him, and I think even when he reminded him to calm, like during the debate, and kind of helped him to like ground himself when he was starting to like do the whole panic attack thing, and like how he was able to be like avatar state, and helped him to kind of like, calm down and breathe and like remember what they had, like, what he helped with before. I thought that was kind of nice. And I it's gonna be interesting to see how they develop. I don't know if anything's gonna come out of that. I don't know if that's something that they're gonna try to like make a thing later or not, but just even on a friendship level, I thought that was pretty chill, pretty cool. And this is why Darum is growing on me as a character. I like Darum. And I think his character is pretty interesting. But of course, the homophobes are going to be so pissed at that. And that's going to be another reason why they hate the show. Even though I'm like, look, this is like so far in the future. I'm like, you guys are showing how just closed-minded and really just freaking losers they are. Honestly, I'm like, really, like gay people, like you're scared because there's gay people or pansexuals or various sexualities within Star Trek. That's very strange to me. Like, come on, let's grow up a little bit. Anyways, oh yeah, and also the whole triad situation when it comes down to Jaden and his parents and how like he has like, two dads, one mom. I thought it was kind of interesting. I never heard of that within like Klingon culture. I watched a video and someone's kind of talking about the idea of like Jaden's parents and how pretty much like how it could be a situation where like maybe one of the dads or whatever joined the family, maybe because of where the Klingons are in society and how things are. Maybe there are some people who are maybe joining different houses or joining different houses or whatever that, they're not originally from or whatever because of the situation that they're in and everything. And so who knows? I think it's kind of an interesting concept. Also, I wanted to mention it was nice to see the end with his parents being on the new planet and how proud they must have been, and seeing how proud his mom was. And yeah, it was nice. It was a warm moment to see that his parents love him enough to be able to say, I'm gonna set you free so that way you can go and do what you're meant to do. That was nice. It was a nice ending. It was overall, I feel like, honestly, a great episode. I loved it. So I wanted to cut in and say that another weird thing that I found strange is how people were complaining that Jaden cried. And this is this whole like toxic masculinity situation. It's like, what's wrong with a dude being emotional about not only his species pretty much being almost extinct, but also the fact that, like, imagine how he's going, like what he's going through emotionally. You know what I mean? I actually didn't feel like he was as emotional as he could have been as far as like crying and stuff like that. Like, he didn't know if his parents were dead or alive. Like, the only people he had left, he already lost his brother. He's amongst people that like are completely different from him. He's like in a whole different environment than what he's used to. Not only that, but then you have the whole situation where he does find out that his dad see him the whole time. We had this whole idea of, oh, my dad doesn't understand me. The only one who understood me or who see me was my brother, when that wasn't actually true. And so it's just kind of like reaching that realization. And of course you'll be overcome with emotion, because the whole time you felt misunderstood, that you weren't seen, but now you finally are. And I'm just like, this whole idea of he's not allowed to cry, like, and there were even like big tears. I literally like little tiny tears, and yet people found a way to get angry and upset about that. And it's just like this idea that, oh, you're not allowed to be emotional, you're not allowed to cry on Star Trek. It's just so weird to me. And I feel like, when has it ever been in Star Trek where a man can't show emotion? Hasn't shown emotion. Anyways, I just want to make that point. And if you go back and look at this scene where his brother is dying, you'll see clearly how differently the family versus Jaden, how they express grief. And with Jaden, he expresses it emotionally, like through tears and through, like, you know, he was crying, like he was emotional. Whereas with his family, it was more so through like they show their grief through like anger. And so I think that was an intentional move, because it shows how different he is from everybody else, which is the exact point. So by him being emotional and crying as a Klingon actually makes sense for his character and why he's so different from other Klingon. So of course he's not going to react the same way a normal Klingon would react to something like, you know, grief or death or deep sadness. So I think that just solidifies the fact that what they did was intentional with the character, and him being emotional and sad actually makes sense. It also makes sense why he wasn't as like overly emotional as well. Like, I think they did a pretty good job, or the actor did a pretty good job portraying the type of Klingon that Jaden is. It wasn't too much, but it also wasn't like too little either. I feel like it was a pretty good balance to express and to see exactly what type of Klingon and what type of character Jaden actually is. And honestly, I'm very curious, and I'm hoping that they keep this up throughout this season. Makes me excited that I think we're supposed to be getting a season 2. So hopefully they can keep it going for the rest of the season. Hopefully things will pick up. Maybe it was just like the first couple episodes that were asked. Yeah, I guess we will see as time goes on. But anyways, for me, I'm gonna rate this episode, I feel like 8.5 out of 10 is a good one. I'm teetering on 9, but I feel like that's a little bit too high. I feel like it was great, but like it wasn't like, whoa, mind-blowing. I just really enjoyed it. I definitely felt it, and it makes me more so like optimistic for what they have coming, and seeing what they do in the next episode and kind of seeing if they could keep this same flow going, and just see if it improves more like as the season goes on. But so far they're starting to make me care a little bit about these characters. I know, like before I was mentioning how I didn't really care about the characters this season, some of last season as well. Not last season, but some of this episode and then last episode, I feel like they're doing a good job at, like, you know, giving us more of an in-depth look at these characters and seeing them develop and seeing how they work together, seeing these different things and seeing them overcome certain things. I like that. I like it so far. So it's growing on me a little bit. It's growing on me. I'll say that. So yeah, what do you guys think about it? Any opinions? Let me know. And if you hear background noise, it's because it's nighttime and dinner is being prepared. I'm gonna grub. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna record another video or so that way.